Last spring, I was giving the graduation address at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, and I take my speeches really seriously because if the kids aren't too hungover, I want them to have some meaning and give good advice to them. So I started thinking, why don't I reach out and solicit some advice from some of the amazing people I've had the privilege of interviewing. So I reached out to Sheryl Crow, Queen Rania, Eric Schmidt of Google, Hugh Jackman, and they all wrote me back great pieces of advice and things they had learned along the way. And I thought, gee, this would make a great collection for a book. I know I loved reading them, and I thought, well, other people might like reading them as well. So I expanded it, I cast a wide net, and I ended up with 116 contributors that make up this book, The Best Advice I Ever Got, Lessons from Extraordinary Lives, because all these people really have lived extraordinary lives. I've gotten a lot of advice as the result of life experience. When I was growing up, my mom used to say to all 4 Couric kids, let them know you're there. I think she didn't want us to be shrinking violets. She wanted us to be assertive, 3 girls and 1 boy. She wanted us to be real participants in life, not on the sidelines. And she wanted us to go for it. So I think that was her way of saying, let them know you're there, let them know what you want, and go for it. My dad, meanwhile, always told us to, what many parents tell their children, do the best you can. But with my dad, it wasn't okay to have the best you can be adequate. I think it was sort of a sneaky way to say, we have very high standards and you need to meet them. When I was leaving the comfort of the Today Show after 15 years to try something new, anchoring the CBS Evening News, it was very scary and a big decision. And I got this wonderful note from a producer at the Today Show. And at the end of it, she said very simply that a boat is always safe in the harbor, but that's not what boats are built for. And I thought, wow, that is such a nice metaphor for this new chapter in my life. You know, I think that if you don't take risks in your life, you don't try new things, you live to regret it. And even though it's not always pain-free, I think it's just an important step on your journey to just try. And there's a lot of nobility in just trying. I don't really consider this my book. I was really the facilitator, if you will. I reached out to the contributors. I had to wrangle quite a few of them because, as you can imagine, these are very, very busy people. Some of the essays are really funny and fun to read. Eric Stonestreet, for example, from Modern Family, who I absolutely love, wrote a poem. And it's sort of whimsical and fun, but actually has some very important life lessons within it. For example, he talks about that old lady in line who's taking so long is actually somebody's grandma, which I think is such an important thing to remember. You know, when you're frustrated about an older man behind the wheel who's driving. Now sometimes when I see someone like that, I remember that is somebody's grandfather. And that could be my dad that people are getting annoyed and aggravated with. So I thought that was a great piece of advice. Basically, he was saying, be patient and compassionate. Meryl Streep allowed us to use a portion of a graduation address she delivered. Matt Goldman, who started Blue Man Group, he advises people to be unreasonable, which isn't that surprising considering what he does for a living. Malcolm Gladwell is part of the book, Chelsea Handler, General Odierno, General Petraeus. And so we ended up with a book full of advice from so many different kinds of people from different walks of life. Drew Brees is one of the nicest people I have ever met in my life. He is such a fine individual, really. And I interviewed him down in New Orleans. So he was nice enough to write something for the book. And he talked about turning adversity into opportunity. When he injured his shoulder back in 2005, he thought it was the end of his career. But it led to a whole new life experience for him. It brought him to New Orleans, it brought him to the New Orleans Saints, and it brought him to the Super Bowl and got him a Super Bowl ring in one of, I thought, the most exhilarating games in history because it was so symbolic of the rise of New Orleans from the ashes of Katrina. So I just loved his essay, and I have to say, I heart Drew Brees. Since this began as a graduation exercise, I decided that all of my profits from this book should go to something that encouraged education. So I selected Scholarship America, which is the oldest nonprofit scholarship fund in the country. It was started in 1958, and they've given $2.5 billion to 1.7 million kids since they began their efforts. They help kids go to college who can't afford it, and they help kids stay in college who are having financial trouble as well. So I'm just thrilled that we can help educate kids, and you can if you buy the book, and really just improve their futures. And one day, hopefully, they'll be able to write an essay that's included in a book like this.